Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Art in Conversation. Good morning, Paula.
Good morning, Farrin. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Our today artist and Nova member is Paula Borsetti. She's a talented artist, and we are honored and glad that you accept to be in our conversation. Welcome to our conversation, Paula.
Thank you.
All right, as usual, we start with you talking about yourself, about your background as an artist, how you became interested in art and what you're doing, what type of art you're doing.
Okay. I think like a lot of people, from a young age, I loved working with my hands and making things. My father was a patent draftsman, and he worked for one of the biggest factories in the city, and he drew all the time, and he drew to understand things and how things worked. And I think that had a big influence on me because I feel like that's how I learn. And so that was kind of interesting, although I never thought that I would be an artist. And he always told the story how he wanted to go to art school and his parents wouldn't let him. And he ended up going in the service, and then he was an artist all his life. So I was not going to go to college, but in high school, I was taking art lessons with a nun in Ipswich who used to be the head of the Emmanuel College in Boston. And she pushed me and my friend to make an appointment and go for an interview at the Art Institute of Boston. So I always say it was divine intervention that I became an artist. And so I did that. And when I graduated from art school, I didn't know what I was going to do. And Montserrat College of Art is in Beverly. So I started taking classes there, and then I worked and had many different jobs. And when my daughter was in kindergarten, I kind of landed in a teaching job at the high school in Beverly, which I never thought I'd step foot back in. And I just left teaching in June of 2020.
Oh, okay.
I kind of decided at the beginning of that year, there were several things that happened with family and friends. And I just I thought, well, this is my time to jump to studio practice full time. And it was before the pandemic. So I had decided in the fall, and then of course when March 13th, I stepped out of my classroom and never went back in, except which was
good
kind of
again.
Yeah, it was good time, but it was also kind of sad because it was a hard way to end. I taught for 26 years and I loved my students, and I kept my practice up, but I didn't really jump into it, full time. So that's why I thought, well, it's, there's no time like now.
Yeah. What type of art are you doing or you've been known with?
I'm a painter. So
what type of painting, the subject of your painting?
Yeah, so I used to work primarily in the landscape, and then I started working more abstract. So I'm still inspired by nature and the landscape, especially growing up in Beverly. It's on the coast, and I spent a lot of time going down to Gloucester to paint outside, and we also have a camp in Maine, so all of that kind of feeds into my work. But it's really about using nature to kind of as symbols for what's going on in my life.
Is this something from beginning? You were a landscape painter since you started painting professional?
I think I'm always, everything turns into a landscape somehow.
Because you're living in that beautiful town. Like that's one of my dream town, Beverly.
It's really beautiful. So
are you?
I get to walk to the beach and see the sunrise, and but also the lakes. But there's something about the setup of a landscape, and bringing people in close or far, that just always has been fascinating to me. So even though my work is now more abstract or mostly abstract, there's still elements of that show up.
Okay. This is how you started, how your work changed. Did you, from
Yeah.
beginning, you start as landscape and abstract work, or?
Yeah, so I think that my landscapes, even working in plein air, directly from the subject, were always abstract. I was always playing with the picture plane, and even though I was referencing what was in front of me, it was more about the feeling that I got, and so that led me to become more abstracted. This painting that's on the screen now was, so when I left teaching and started working in my studio, I wasn't really sure what I was going to be working on. And I feel like this painting was like one of the first ones where I just let go. And I was walking at the sunrise, and I go to the same beach. So sometimes, the tide's high or the tide's low. And I was thinking about how, even though it's the same place, every time you go, it's different.
Mhm.
And what happens underneath when the tide is high and that little kind of party that's going on under there that we can't see. And then as the tide recedes, and my work that I put in this show, the slide presentation, the first part of it is really, I just had a solo show in June called Tending Below the Surface. It was an online solo show, and it was based on words and thoughts. My friend's son has ALS. So I've been painting. He's been diagnosed for 9 years. He's my daughter's age. And he was like our, we traded kids. So he's like my son as well. So I've always been trying to use my art to raise awareness and funds. And so I wanted to do a series of paintings that were jumping off from his words. And this beneath was the idea of, we see him on the surface, but we don't know what's happening below. So
Okay.
most of these are coming from.
All right. But the subject is, I mean, you use nature to kind of incorporate it into.
Right. Yeah.
Quite actually connected. The same thing with nature, right? We see just the surface. We don't know what's happening underneath.
Yes. Yeah. It's just fascinating to me. So, and I love to work in layers. So these paintings, like this one in particular, this is on Yupo paper. And so I like that surface because it's difficult to kind of get the paint to stick. So you have to really work it before the image can start to come to life, I think. So I start a lot with words. I do a lot of writing on the surface just to kind of break up the surface and then build up from there.
Okay. So there are many layers. So, and you let a layer dry, and then a next layer, and a next layer.
Yeah.
How long something like this takes to create a layer of?
Yeah. So with the Yupo, I like to let it dry in between pretty good. So I work on several at a time. So I might have 5 or 6 or 10 paintings going at once so that I can go bouncing between them. And also it helps me to not, overwork something. This one, this one's big, 60 by 38. So.
And I see most of your work are big, even behind you in your studio.
Yes.
I mean, this is just, you like to paint it big. What's the idea of painting big?
So I think that, it's more of a physical act. I'm painting the size that I am, and that really, I can really just kind of push and pull. But I also work very small. Sometimes I like to just get quiet and intricate and work small. I'll show you some of those. I think they have one at the end, but I love to work big so I can just use my arm and not my wrist or my fingers, just, it feels like it's the size of me.
Yeah, I understand this, because most of your subject are nature, right? And you incorporating nature,
Yeah, yeah.
layering of nature. Beside nature, are you use any other subject? I mean, or nature is the only subject you work on?
I think that most of it, I use nature as symbols for some of the feelings that I'm trying to express. But also some of the lines and shapes become figurative. And I used to do more figurative work, and I don't know that that might be coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so
but you inspire from nature for
yes,
based on different feelings, and you
yes, yeah,
yeah, I understand.
yeah, yeah,
Understand. I mean, it makes nice, makes sense. We are part of nature, right?
yeah. And
And
especially being on the water.
yeah,
I love being on the water and in the water. And I swam, you know, at the Y every day with my mom for over 30 years. So I just, being of the water and in that really inspires me as well.
I understand.
Um, and
Okay,
so in this one, the floodgates was the idea of something powerful just pouring out, and that's where this one came from. So there's just um different shapes and symbols of both holding back and then pouring out.
considering the full gate, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And these are all more your recent work, which is
Yes,
like
yep,
2023.
yeah.
Is this the same subject you work early? Like, for example, you painting for 30 years, you said. Is this the same subject you painted previously too? Landscape? Is it how it changed over
Yep,
the your
yep.
work?
So I think my landscapes before were more about just referencing the land and, the landscape or what I was seeing in front of me,
Okay,
and translating that into a painting that worked formally.
okay,
Where now I'm more interested in internally. So how am I using the landscape and nature to express what's happening more internally? So I'm more connected. They're more personal.
yeah.
Um,
So in a sense, before they were representational, now they are representational of you and your feeling.
yes,
If I want to.
yes, yes,
Right.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay. So, but still, you inspire from nature. You were inspired from nature, and you inspire from nature before
yes,
representing nature. Now, nature representing you.
yes. Oh, I love that. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, which is makes sense because we are part of nature, right? I mean,
Mhm.
our vision toward or observation toward nature may change, but we can't avoid it because we are part of it.
Yes. And I don't live in a city. Well, I do live in a city, but it's not, a big city. So that I'm more surrounded by nature as opposed to doing more architecture. I think if I was living in Boston, I would be maybe using architecture as the symbol to,
To
for,
express you, yeah. I
yeah,
not because you're living in middle of nature. Nature,
yes,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
makes sense. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
How about this painting? What this represent?
yeah. So this painting, uh, I started with a lot of like a black background and a lot of words, um, again, relating to my friend's journey with ALS. And I wanted it to be those, I wanted the words and the darkness to be underneath, and I wanted it to be a representation of hope. And so it's like a whole day, um, in one painting, just kind of going through all the moments of the day. Yet sometimes we get messages or news that stops us in our tracks, and so that's where the name came from. So, and it's how we navigate getting back into our
Yes.
regular life, but with a sense of hope, because I feel like the young man that I'm talking about, Bobby, he's all about hope and resilience. And so I just wanted to kind of represent that with this painting.
And then so the dark color, which is, you see the sipping underneath, are
Yeah.
those that he's a struggle.
Yes. Yeah.
And the hope, kind of what we see today, are the hope he had for life.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So the colorful thing, or so this is one day of his life or your life?
Well, it's my life, because I don't know what his day is like. I mean, I know what his day is like because he's completely paralyzed and, you know, in a wheelchair, but it's what I would hope.
Okay.
You know, if he could experience the day, you know, he would love to be out in a day that was bright and colorful and hopeful and near the water, and just a, you know, a whole journey in a day.
All right. So this is your imagination
Mm-hmm.
for his day.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, beautiful, makes sense. And you see, like, you know, when you look at this painting, you see a lot of things, like you see birds, you see wave,
Mm-hmm.
and abstract, but I think that's the way you want it, the observer to interpret this world, right?
Yes.
And see what they can see. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
for example, from my point of view and what I observe is different from what you painted, which is that makes sense. So it can interpret everyday life of everyone.
Right. That's what my hope is. Yeah.
Yeah, you achieve it. I can see on it. All right, press play.
Yep.
Let's do this, press play. And I check in your website. I saw you do mixed media too, beside painting.
Right. I don't do a lot currently. I'm not doing a lot of mixed media because I'm just focused on painting right now.
Okay.
Even though I love to work in so many different media, I'm trying to just rein myself in a little bit for a certain amount of time, because I love printmaking, and you know, I love drawing. I love using collage elements and making collage elements. So, but I'm trying to just really work on developing this body of work and working on painting for right now.
Yeah. So you were educated as painter when you were
Yes.
studying.
Yes. Yeah. That was painting was my major.
Your major. Okay.
Yeah. And so press play is thinking about memories and going, when we go back over and think about events that happened and the little bits that we keep. And I wanted us to be the idea of that big arrow, but going in reverse. So what happens when we press play, but we want to go backwards? And what kind of memories do we hold on to, and things that we let go of? And so the kind of graffiti around in the background is more, those are the memories. And
So and I see some writing. What are those words? Press
yeah,
play.
press play, and some of it is written backwards. I like to write with my non-dominant hand and backwards, so that the writing just becomes more of a line element and not the word, you know. It's there for me, but it's the texture and the mark making that comes out of the calligraphy.
And as you said, it's about memory, right? Memory, you go backward to see the memory. So if you want, in a sense, interpret that. This
Yeah.
is one of your work, which is, I believe, has layer in it, right? So you paint
Yes.
one layer and several. How many layer? I mean, you adding to
I'm
create.
laughing because they're really heavy. I'm painting, these are on linen, and I don't stretch it first. I tack it to my wall, and so they get pretty heavy. I don't know if it was x-rayed, probably people would be like, whoa, that's how that started. So I just keep going until it's,
You're satisfied.
yeah, till it's not driving me crazy
Yeah, I
anymore.
mean, we never, as artists, you never get satisfied. You always look and unless
Yeah,
you say, this is it. I'm not gonna take any further, you know, but as
yeah,
artists, I understand you can't get satisfied with work unless you force yourself. So
yeah, because
you don't stretch the canvas first, you just start painting after you finish, you stretch.
yeah, yes. It's mostly because I don't like the spring in the canvas. I like to be able to just really kind of pound on it, and if it's staple gun to my wall, I can go in and do some sanding and really push the layering. So, and then afterwards I can stretch it. And for storage purposes, I can roll them up
Yeah,
and, stretch them when I need to.
yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
So, and every little movement.
Yes. So this is also from that series. And so this was really thinking about how we move throughout the day and what happens when the movement just becomes smaller and smaller, and we can't, there's only little movements that we can make. So it was just, this is definitely inspired by, I work at a gallery down in Gloucester, so it's inspired by being on the docks and being by the ocean. And
And all this in this series are the same size, right? 36 by 48 or around the same
yeah,
size.
I think I have three that are 3 or 4 that are 36 by 48, and then some of them are 3 by 3.
And how you decide to make a series? Is that you, from beginning, your concept is to create, for example, 6 or 3 or 4. This is a series I'm making and I want to have like this many in it. Or you paint one and you decide to extend it. How you decide on that?
I think it's both, but for this particular series, I didn't have a number in mind. I had a list of words that I wanted to try to turn into paintings.
Okay.
So I just kind of have been working from those words and the words and the feeling. And I knew I was having this solo show and I wanted it to be focused on this body of work. So
you paint them by for the show, the whole series. It was.
yes. Well, I knew that show was coming up. So, and I wanted to focus on that, on this series for that show.
Okay.
And it just kind of, it started with the beneath painting and just took off from there. And the words really drove the paintings. I had words from both the young man that has ALS and his family and his caregiver. So I just kind of wanted to keep going with that. And then I have towards the end, some of the work that I sent you is new work for a show that I'm in coming up in a couple of weeks.
Okay. So it's for the process of your work, how you do, are you painting in a place or you take picture? Do you have photo reference in your gallery? How you develop your work in a sense?
Yep. It's mostly intuitive, and I'm working from the mark making, and that decides where the painting goes.
Okay.
So I don't usually, sometimes I'll find reference images. I take photos all day long, and I take a lot of photos at the beach. I have like some tide pools that I take a photo of every day, which is the next series that I'm going to be starting. But I don't look at them afterwards. So they're here, but I don't look at them or pull them out just to reference them.
Yeah, but you remember, because when you take picture, you remember.
Yes,
So you
yes,
don't
just
need
like drawing it, you know, so.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes sense, right? You know, some people, they want to go into detail, so they need that picture, but you want the
Right.
concept, and you
Yeah,
already took picture of concept, so it's in your
yep.
brain. Okay,
And if I need the details, like on this one, actually, the prunella flower, you know, I did have a photo reference for that to get an idea of what I wanted to use. This one, prunella is a wildflower that's used in medicine, and it's also called self-heal or all heal. And it's both healing for internal and external issues. And so this painting, I woke up, I had a dream that I had these three forms. And so I came out and started painting kind of what I saw in my dream. And then it completely changed, except for the three forms remained. But it wanted the background to be similar to a chalkboard or a blackboard, with equations and solutions that haven't been solved, but the forms have these warm shapes that feel that they're okay. And the healing flower going up. So that's kind of,
Why you have those shapes? I mean, are they reference to something? The tree.
yeah, well, it's kind of like body, mind, and spirit, you know, or
All right, yeah, it makes sense.
yeah, and it's the same size again as me, so it's figure size.
Okay,
Yeah,
and then the flower, which is the healing.
yes.
Yeah, kind
Yeah.
of connected
Really,
all.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, and then the background, it's the mind, right? Which is unsolved.
Yes, all the unsolved problems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really, it's like very meaningful. And like, you know, I understand it when I'm looking at it. Uh,
This painting, the Prunella painting, that probably has 50 layers. I took pictures every step of the way, and it has, you know, it started with, I had spines and all kinds of things that just didn't say it. You know, it took a while for it to kind of appear and say, this is what it wants to be.
yeah,
It's
it
really
makes sense. I mean, many artists do the same, you know. I mean,
right.
if you paint something from beginning, and end, there are totally different painting.
Yes.
Because
Yes. Yep.
some of the idea, the concept, always not stay the same as you work.
Yeah. And this one is also from that series in the words, and it's FALS. So, and it's just the whole frenzy of when you get the diagnosis to just kind of everything that transpires after that. So that's where this one came from.
Very, very touching.
And this one is, you know, so Bobby lived in New Orleans, and I just had this idea one day. I was working on this painting, and that little house kind of popped up and appeared, and it reminded me of a shotgun house in New Orleans, that's where he used to live. And then the magical landscape, it just became all the ingredients that were in gumbo, and it was just really a fun painting to paint. So I was playing around with the okra shapes and the crab and onions and celery and sassafras, and just, yeah, it was just really fun and playful. And then this painting is this start of new work that's going to be in the show that I'm in, called Call and Response. And I'm with 5 other artists. And we each have a call piece and a theme. And so my theme is the healing process. In the act of living painting is my call piece for the show, but the response, these are the responses to other people's work.
Yeah. I see the one in your background in your studio. Is this one, that one, or the same series? The one in your background,
Um,
this one to your,
no, it's not.
yeah, okay, because very similar to that. I was just,
Yeah, similar colors, yeah. So this, the
sorry.
one, this one, the theme for this call was second chances, and my mother had a stroke 2 years ago, and
Oh.
she's doing fine. She's thankfully she's great. She's 94 and she's unbelievable. But this is kind of about her because there's concrete elements that she can still grasp onto, but other things are kind of floating around,
Yeah.
hard to grasp. And so that's where this all came from.
Yeah, beautiful, very nice. I like it.
Yeah.
I like the idea of this cloudy thing, which just makes sense when you explain the story of your mom.
Yeah. And the
Really.
pillow giant is the theme for this one was connections. And I started painting and I just had this whole memory of being a kid and being homesick and my mother reading to me from A Child's Garden of Verses. And so it's from the Robert Louis Stevenson poem called The Land of Counterpane. And so it was really fun to take somebody else's theme and then see how, it affects you and what comes from that.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
So these are all from the same series and the show that you're gonna have soon.
Yes. Yep. And then Truth Flings Hearts Open is from a haiku that I wrote, and it was visual poetry was the theme. And so this has the haiku is kind of embedded in it, and it's all about that.
All right.
Yeah.
And this is also, Hamis, as you said, most of your work are layers, right? Layer and
Yep.
layer.
Yeah. And these ones are also, so these are small, there's 36 4x4 panels that I painted together, and then kind of pulled them apart. And the theme for this was, it takes a village. So I had to come up with a way to display them that was not going to be putting 36 holes in the wall in the gallery. And so we made these frames, and the paintings can come out. I actually have one. I'll show you.
Oh, let me actually stop sharing.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So, and then all right.
Little painting comes out. I'll see if I can get one out.
All right. So you put, all right. Oh, it just go, all right. It's
Yeah,
like a puzzle.
Like a puzzle, and they can be rearranged and reordered. And then behind each one is a quote that is about community.
Oh, wow. It's like a game board.
Yes. Yeah. It's really fun. We had a lot of fun kind of coming up with the way to do this. No, but yeah.
Interesting.
So,
it's like a game board. You take the
yeah. And yeah, so you can interact and set it up any way that you want,
Yeah, very interesting idea. I like it. I was just thinking when I saw this, I said, oh, that's like
what is that, right?
What is that, right? This wall.
Yes. That's why I wanted to kind of hold it up and show so that.
Very good. I like it. I like the idea of those quote behind it.
Yes. Yeah.
So all the quotes are same, or each one has different quote behind it?
Each one has a different quote.
All right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But related to the importance of being part of a community.
Okay. All right. Is this a living community? Is this somewhere in your neighborhood, or it's something just
a community in general?
Okay.
Yeah. Any community.
In general.
And these are very much inspired by the landscape, and again, being down on the docks in Gloucester. I'm part of it's called the Salted Cod Art House, and it's a cooperative gallery on Rocky Neck, which Rocky Neck is one of the oldest operating art colonies in the United States.
Yeah.
It's a really fun community and to be a part of. So
yeah. And then I check your website. You have a lot of things in website, include like, this kind of sign and board and etc., which is you making as a craft, which is they are very
Yes. Yeah, with my husband, yeah.
yeah, very interesting. And sign and furniture and everything else, which is
Yeah.
they are very fun.
Yeah, the whirligigs are so fun.
Yeah, I should travel to Beverly. I've been to Beverly a couple of times, but next time definitely if I come in that area, I will visit your studio.
Yes, yes.
All right, that means our time come to end. I know we are very limited. So these are some contact information of Paula if anybody want to reach out to her website, Instagram, and her portfolio, which is beautiful and really, really touching work, in particular because you work with nature. So, and as you mentioned it, they have kind of healing sense within your work when you look at them. So
Yeah.
nature become part of you
Yes.
today. Any Paula, always we end our conversation with a word and or advice from you for other for our friend and art lover. Do you have any advice, any word to end up our show from you to our other artists?
Yeah. So when I was teaching, I was always telling my students to just follow their heart and follow their passion. And it took me a long time to jump out of teaching to do that, even though I loved teaching. I don't want to say that the wrong way, but being in the studio full time, I mean, I can't get over how lucky I am to be able to do this and that it's my job that I get to go to every day. So I'm so grateful for that. And I think, anytime it might get frustrating or overwhelming, I just keep remembering I'm so lucky that I get to do this. So I just think keep going no matter what happens.
Yeah, and get inspiration for yourself and others.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much, Paula. We're really glad that had this opportunity to talk about your work and your healing work, which is they are really beautiful and powerful in a sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
It was wonderful.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.